So what support have you given the food banks in Ceredigion?
I think my main job as a Member of Parliament is raising awareness of the existence of food banks to constituents in need. I think the year 2000 the first food bank emerged in Salisbury. It's quite clear we've seen an explosion in the number of food banks and their need from different people, and the reasons for that are quite complex. Some people say it's about a lack of education as to how people manage their finances. I think that's simply not enough. I mean, I'm quite clear that certainly some of the benefit changes have had a huge impact on people's finances, and so my main job is awareness raising. I think of the need for food banks, of the linking people up who need to access them.
So why did you develop a food bank here in the first place?
It started because the Trussell Trust approached us, wanting us to open a food bank to cover the whole of Ceredigion, which we felt at the time wasn't either our remit or, given the huge area involved, was not practically possible. And so we actually shelved the whole idea for a few months, in actual fact. But being a Christian organisation, we prayed about it, and eventually we came to the conclusion that actually that's something that we ought to be doing, not least because in the Bible it says time and time again, love your neighbour, and part of that for us is helping them in a practical way. And so we started it with really no expectation that there was a huge need for it. But the day we started it, which was at Easter in 2011, the very first day we had our first referral. And so since then it's just gone from a few to a lot.
How does the process work then? How does the food get to the clients?
They get taken back to St Anne's Church, and whoever is on call at that particular time will take the name of the client, the voucher number, any dietary requirements, whether they have pets or babies, and what's needed, and they can adjust the boxes as and if it's needed. They then meet them in St Anne's Church and hand them out.
So what are the main reasons that people have to come here to the food bank?
Right, we do, each voucher has a long list of reasons why they've been referred to us, and the voucher holder should fill that in before we get it. So we do have data on this, and the biggest issue is one of benefits, so benefit delays or benefit cuts. And if you look at the data, if you look at the number of vouchers which mention issues of benefits, then 59% of them are actually benefit related. But that's a pretty high proportion. And if we go down the list, then homeless is another big one. But bear in mind for us that homeless doesn't mean that the people are out on the streets necessarily, because people like the Woolwich and the Care Society will have potentially already found them some sort of temporary accommodation before they come to us. We do actually find it quite difficult to deal with properly homeless people because, of course, a lot of our food requires heating and cooking and stuff. Debt is another big issue. Unemployment, which goes together. Domestic violence, illness, wages delayed, issues like that. But by far the biggest one is benefit issues.
So Malcolm, I can see that there's a lot of food here in St Anne's here, in Lampeter and Aberystwyth. Where did all of this come from?
This comes from churches and chapels, not just in Aberystwyth, but from the villages around. It comes from different organisations, and we have a lot of individuals too who bring food into us. And normally there's another set of boxes here which come from the co-op. We have a partnership with the co-op store in town, so they have a collection basket for us, and they normally bring up 3 or 4 of their home delivery boxes every week. So we are very blessed with the fact that we have, at the moment certainly, a good stock of food coming in regularly.
So do you have like a wish list for the future of the food bank, or where would you like to see yourselves in the future?
We only have one item on our wish list in a sense, and that's for us to not exist. We've always said that in 21st century Britain there ought not to be a need for food banks. But I guess that's up to government policy and a huge change in social structure really. So we actually foresee us being needed for the foreseeable future really.
So how long have you been volunteering here, and why did you start to volunteer here?
I've been a volunteer here for a few months now. After watching several programmes last year on food banks and poverty in the UK, I decided that I needed to give something back to my local community.
Mary, how long?
About 2.5 years. I retired, or just before I retired, I knew of the food bank, and I felt, and I was encouraged to join the food bank as well. And it's lovely because it's good at helping the community, but it's bringing a group of us into a lovely friendship.
So Julie, how has the food bank benefited you here in Lampeter?
Well, to be perfectly honest, about this, if it hadn't have been for the food bank, I don't know what we'd have done. We'd have starved. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because I've got no family around here, no support system, so if it wasn't for the food bank, we would have been really, really struggling.
So how did you hear about the food bank here in Lampeter?
Initially it was through church, but my daughter has got a support worker with schooling from Team Around the Family in Erys, and she actually saw our situation and gave us a voucher.
So what was contained in the food parcel?
Well, basically you were given 3 meals per person. There was 3 in our family for 3 days, and the produce that you see here, tin stuff, your basic staples, that you could knock a meal up. So I was very, very grateful.
So why did you become a voucher holder for the food bank?
It became apparent that many of the clients that we see are in financial difficulties, with it being the cuts in welfare, increase in house prices, the rents are higher within the Ceredigion area, most certainly in Aberystwyth, and it became apparent again that the service was vital in Aberystwyth, as it is throughout the whole county of Ceredigion, to assist people to put meals on tables, with it being single adults to right through to the elderly and families with young children as well.
So was there a reason why you decided to start the food bank here in Lampeter?
The churches in Lampeter, I think, became aware, I think because of things locally, but also just because of what was emerging in the national press, that there were likely to be people who were struggling to feed themselves and their families, and were aware of the existence of other food banks, and wanted to do something to help people in our local area get through a very difficult time in their lives that is very much beyond their own control most of the time. Well, we have a number of partner agencies who refer their clients to us. There's over 26 of them at the moment, so quite a range from local housing associations, groups like Team Around the Family who work with families and children, groups that are sort of do supporting people type work like Ceredigion Care Society, Mind, churches. The churches who are part of the food bank are also referrers, so if they become aware of people who are in need, they can refer from within the church as well with a voucher.
So do you see the food bank sort of changing in terms of your usage of it as the Care Society in the future?
Not as the use of it, but I think it would increase how many there are going to be issued. I think I don't see particularly with the benefit system, that's going to improve anytime soon. If we ever see universal credit, then you know, that's going to massively impact on how people budget. You know, we're still in a pretty tough economic climate, so yeah, the general consensus seems to be is that food banks are becoming increased in the amount of them throughout the country, not just sort of here. I think they're sort of popping up everywhere, and yeah, more and more people are likely to access them, I guess.
So, Peggy, ble licech chi gweld food banks yn y dyfodol, neu beth licech chi digwydd yn y dyfodol?
Wel, y bwriad yw yn y dyfodol na fydd ddim eisiau banc bwyd o gwbl. Ond fel mae pethau ar y foment ac yn y cyfamser, mae rhaid codi ymwybyddiaeth o'r banciau bwyd a'r ffaith bod angen banciau bwyd, bod bobl mewn tlodi ac yn gorfod ato ni i fyw ac i gael bwyd i fyw mewn gwirionedd.
So how many food vouchers on average do you give out per month?
Approximately 5 per month, but that can depend on client need, whether the particular groups have been sanctioned or payments are late, such as ESA payments or PIP payments. They do tend to come in batches and groups, but it can be more and it can be less.
Mm-hmm. So what difference does the food voucher make to your beneficiaries?
Okay. Some good stories obviously around the Easter time. We had a number of families coming to us for assistance. We were able to refer them on to the food bank, and we actually had some thank you phone calls that their children have managed to get. I know it's only small, but an Easter egg, and that made a big difference just to the family when they're finding things difficult to put food on the table. That was a nice treat for their children.
So do you feel that there is a continuing need for food banks in Ceredigion?
Unquestionably that's the case, and I think we're very lucky that we have a vibrant third sector that has been able to meet that need. Not all constituencies are so fortunate. And I hesitate to use the word fortunate because this is a really difficult situation that a lot of families may find themselves in. But I think the need is there. I think there's a message there for government of whatever political persuasion. I have to say food banks did exist under whoever have been running the show in London. And so we do need to recognise their importance. Certainly, as I said, one of the solutions to the scale of the use of food banks has to be reform in the benefit system. I mean, it is a matter of fact now that one of the reasons why so many people are using food banks is that there is a referral process from Job Centre Plus to the food bank. Now, if we were alleviating some of the problems in the benefit system, then we would take out, I think, a lot of people necessarily needing to use food banks. So an aspiration, of course it's got to be an aspiration, because the kind of society I said any of us want to live in would be that real grinding hardship wouldn't be there.
So from filming with Lampeter and Aberystwyth food banks, we can see that they both offer the same service but operate in slightly different ways, and that there is a whole process to go through in order to get a food voucher and then essentially a food parcel. Both the food banks also have the wish of not being around in the next few years, as they'd like to see that everybody has enough food, but from what we can see, the need for food banks is increasing, and the food banks, I think, are still going to be around in the years to come, and this is a problem that is not going to be eradicated overnight.